German Shepherd was trapped under a fallen tree after storm. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen will touch your heart in ways you never imagined. Get ready for an incredible journey of connection that defies explanation. Thunder crashed overhead, shaking the very foundation of the Cooper family home. The small, picturesque town of Riverdale hadn't seen a storm this violent in decades. Weather reports had predicted rain, but nobody expected the apocalyptic fury that descended upon them that night. Jack Cooper clutched his wife Emma's trembling hand as they huddled in their bathroom, the only room in their house without windows. Their 5-year-old son Noah sat cross-legged on the bathroom floor, oddly calm amid the chaos. While his parents flinched at each thunderous boom, Noah's gaze remained fixed on the small bathroom window, staring out toward the dense forest that bordered their property. "It'll be over soon," Jack whispered, not believing his own words as the wind howled with renewed vengeance. A deafening crack echoed through the night, the unmistakable sound of a massive tree surrendering to the storm's wrath. Emma pulled Noah closer. "Are you scared, honey?" she asked, stroking his hair. But Noah didn't answer. His eyes never left the window, as if he could see something through the darkness and sheets of rain that his parents couldn't. "Someone's crying," he said, his voice barely audible above the storm. "It's just the wind, sweetie," Emma assured him, exchanging a worried glance with Jack. Noah shook his head. "No, someone's trapped. They're scared." A chill ran down Jack's spine that had nothing to do with the cold draft seeping through the cracks of their home. Noah had always been different, more perceptive, more attuned to things others couldn't sense. They'd noticed it since he was a baby, the way animals gravitated toward him, the way he seemed to understand things beyond his years. "The roof!" Jack yelled, as a horrifying splintering sound came from above. He threw himself over his wife and son, as part of their ceiling collapsed, sending plaster and wood crashing down just feet from where they huddled. Water began pouring through the new opening, quickly flooding the bathroom floor. Emma was sobbing now, clutching Noah to her chest, but the boy remained eerily composed, his eyes still fixed on the window. "We need to move," Jack shouted over the roar of the storm. "The bathroom isn't safe anymore." He pulled his family toward the hallway, seeking any corner of their home that might offer shelter from the storm's relentless assault. They ended up in the interior hallway, backs pressed against the wall, a mattress dragged from their bed, propped over them for protection. Hours passed, in terrified silence, broken only by the storm's rage and Emma's quiet prayers. Throughout it all, Noah remained in a trance-like state. "He needs help," the boy whispered occasionally. "He's running out of time." Dawn broke with an eerie silence. The storm had finally exhausted itself, moving on to terrorize other parts of the country. Jack cautiously stepped outside, surveying the destruction left in its wake. Their roof was partially gone, belongings scattered across the muddy yard, but they were alive, and for that, he was grateful. Emma joined him, Noah's hand firmly in hers. "It's like a war zone," she gasped, taking in the devastation. Uprooted trees, downed power lines, and debris littered what had once been their peaceful neighborhood. In the distance they could hear sirens, emergency services already responding to the crisis. But Noah wasn't looking at the destruction around their home. His attention was drawn to the forest edge, where several massive trees had fallen, creating a chaotic tangle of branches, trunks, and uprooted earth. "He's still there," Noah said, pulling away from his mother's grasp. "He's still trapped." "Noah, stay close," Emma called out, but the boy was already moving across the muddy yard toward the forest edge. Jack put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Let's check on the Richardsons next door. Their house looks worse than ours." The elderly couple had lived beside them for years, and Jack worried about how they had weathered the storm. As their neighbors emerged from their homes, a community in shock began to form. Everyone had a story. Everyone had suffered damage. But miraculously, no one seemed seriously injured. Jack was deep in conversation with Mr. Richardson, discussing how to secure the man's partially collapsed garage, when Emma suddenly realized Noah was no longer beside her. "Noah!" she called out, panic rising in her voice. "Noah!" "He probably just went back inside," Jack suggested, but the tight knot in his stomach told him otherwise. Emma shook her head, eyes wide with fear. "No, he was fixated on the forest edge. He kept saying someone needed help." Without waiting for Jack's response, she took off toward the tree line, calling their son's name. Jack quickly excused himself and followed, his heart pounding. The fallen trees at the edge of the forest created an intimidating barrier of splintered wood and tangled branches. It wasn't safe for a child to be wandering around such destruction. "Noah!" Emma's voice was growing more frantic. Then suddenly, "Jack, over here!" He found Emma standing near a massive oak that had been completely uprooted by the storm. The ancient tree lay on its side, its massive root system exposed like the veins of a giant heart torn from the earth. And there, on his hands and knees in the mud beside the fallen trunk, was Noah. "Noah Cooper, you get back here right now," Jack called out, picking his way carefully through the debris. But Noah didn't move. He remained on all fours, peering into a small gap beneath the fallen tree. And then Jack heard it, a faint whimpering sound. "Dad, hurry!" Noah called back, his voice quivering with urgency. "He's stuck! He can't breathe!" Jack and Emma exchanged a confused look before scrambling toward their son. When they reached him, Noah was lying flat on his stomach, one small arm extended into a narrow opening beneath the massive tree trunk. "There's a dog trapped under here," Noah explained, his face streaked with mud and tears. "He's hurt really bad. He told me where to find him." Jack crouched down beside his son, and sure enough, through the small gap, he could see the dark fur of what appeared to be a large dog. The animal was pinned beneath the tree, whimpering softly. "My God!" Emma gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "How did you know it was here, Noah?" Noah looked up at his mother with those old soul eyes that sometimes unnerved her. "He called me. In the storm. He said he was scared and couldn't move." A shiver ran down Jack's spine despite the morning heat. He'd learned not to question his son's unusual perceptions, but this was different. This was specific. And somehow, Noah had been right. Jack lay down beside his son and peered into the gap. The dog, a GermanShepherd from what he could see, was indeed trapped. The massive tree had fallen in such a way that it pinned the animal's lower body, while a pocket of space created by other fallen branches had saved its upper body from being crushed. The dog's eyes, amber and intelligent, locked with Jack's. "He's still alive," Jack confirmed, "but we need help to get him out. That tree must weigh tons." Emma was already on her feet. "I'll get the neighbors." As she ran back toward the houses, Jack tried to assess the situation. "Can you see if he's bleeding, Noah?" Noah nodded, his small face solemn. "His back leg is hurt really bad, and he can't feel his tail anymore." The boy reached his arm further into the gap, his fingers just barely reaching the dog's muzzle. To Jack's amazement, the trapped animal licked his son's fingertips weakly. "I found you," Noah whispered, the same words he'd spoken countless times during the storm. "Just like I promised." Within minutes, Emma returned with several neighbors, including Tom Wilson, who lived at the end of their street. "That's Max!" Tom exclaimed when he peered into the gap. "That's the Johnsons' dog." "The Johnsons?" Jack asked, standing up to face the gathering crowd. Tom nodded. "They're away on vacation in Florida, left last weekend. Their niece Olivia has been coming by to feed and walk Max." He shook his head in disbelief. "Poor thing must have gotten spooked by the storm and ran off." Noah remained by the gap, whispering to the trapped dog. Emma noticed that whenever her son spoke, the dog's whimpering quieted, as if drawing comfort from the child's presence. "We need to get him out," Noah said, his voice suddenly firm with a determination that seemed beyond his years. "He's getting weaker." Jack surveyed the massive oak. "We'll need chainsaws, Jax. This isn't going to be easy." "I've got a chainsaw in my garage," offered Mr. Richardson. "Bit old, but it still runs." "And I've got a floor jack from my auto shop," added another neighbor, Mike Chen. "Not sure if it'll be strong enough, though." As the adults discussed rescue strategies, Noah continued his one-sided conversation with the trapped dog, or at least, it seemed one-sided to everyone but Noah. "He says we shouldn't try to lift the tree," Noah announced suddenly, interrupting the adults' planning. "He says we need to dig underneath." All eyes turned to the small boy, whose mud-streaked face was set in a determined expression. "Noah, honey, I know you want to help," Emma began gently, "but the grown-ups need to figure this out." "No, Mom," Noah insisted, an unusual firmness in his voice. "Max says if you try to lift the tree, more branches will fall and hurt him worse." We need to dig under where his back legs are stuck." Jack exchanged glances with the other adults. The boy's suggestion wasn't entirely without merit. Creating a space beneath the dog might allow them to pull it free without moving the massive trunk. Tom Wilson scratched his head. "You know, the kid might be right. These old oaks have complex branch structures. Start cutting in the wrong place, and we could make things worse." "But how does he know the dog's name is Max?" Mike whispered to Jack, who could only shrug in response. As more neighbors arrived to help, word spread about the trapped dog and the unusual child who had found it. Garden tools appeared: shovels, spades, even a pickaxe. Under Noah's surprisingly specific directions, they began carefully digging beside the trunk where the dog was pinned. "A little more to the left," Noah would say, or "Be careful there, that's right above his hurt leg." Emma watched her son with growing concern. How could he possibly know these details? Yet each time they followed his instructions, they made progress without causing the dog additional distress. The sun climbed higher in the sky as they worked, the summer heat intensifying. Someone brought water bottles for the rescuers, and Noah insisted on using his to dampen a cloth that he carefully pushed through the gap to the trapped dog. "He's really thirsty," Noah explained, "and he's getting hot." Jack paused in his digging, wiping sweat from his brow. "Noah, can you really understand what the dog is telling you?" Noah looked at his father with those unsettlingly wise eyes. "Not like talking, Dad. More like feelings. Pictures in my head." He turned back to the gap. "But he understands every word I say." As if to confirm this remarkable claim, the dog gave a soft whine. Tom Wilson returned from calling the local veterinarian. "Dr. Sanchez is on her way. She says we need to be extremely careful when we get him out. If he's been trapped all night, he could have crush injuries that might kill him if we move him wrong." Noah nodded solemnly. "That's why we have to go slow. He knows that too." The digging continued, creating a narrow tunnel underneath the section of trunk where Max's hind legs were pinned. It was slow, painstaking work, with Noah directing every move to avoid shifting the weight of the tree or causing the dog more pain. "There's something metal stuck in the ground right there." Noah pointed to a spot near where Mike was digging. "It's pressing against his side." Mike carefully scraped away more dirt, revealing a broken garden rake that had been buried beneath the soil. "How in the world did you know that was there?" he asked, but Noah just shrugged. As they worked, more neighbors arrived, drawn by the story of the boy who had somehow known about the trapped dog. Someone brought a tarp to shield them from the increasingly hot sun. Others arrived with food, additional tools, and offers of help. "This whole community has come together," Emma marveled, passing out sandwiches to the tired rescuers. All because Noah somehow knew. Jack watched his son, who hadn't left the dog's side for hours. "It's not the first time he's known things, Em," he said quietly. "Remember when he insisted we check on your mother last year, the day before she had her stroke?" Emma nodded slowly. "And the time he found that lost cat in the school basement when no one else could figure out where it had gone." She squeezed Jack's hand. "I've always known he was special. I just didn't realize how special." By mid-afternoon, they had created a sizable tunnel beneath the trunk. Dr. Sanchez had arrived, bringing medical supplies and a stretcher designed for large animals. "Based on what I can see, he's got a broken hind leg at minimum," she said, after examining as much of the dog as she could see through the gap. "Possibly internal injuries, too. We won't know the full extent until we get him out." "We're almost there," Noah announced. "Just a little more digging right here." He pointed to a specific spot. Dr. Sanchez raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the child's direction. By now, most of the rescuers had accepted Noah's unexplainable connection to the trapped animal. "Once we've created enough space, someone will need to crawl in and secure him before we try to pull him out," Dr. Sanchez explained. "I would do it, but I don't think I can fit through that gap." Before anyone could volunteer, Noah spoke up. "It has to be me." His voice was quiet but firm. "Max trusts me. He'll be scared if someone else tries." Emma immediately protested. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous, Noah. If that tree shifts even a little—" "It won't," Noah interrupted with strange certainty. "And Max won't let anyone else help him out. He already told me." Jack knelt beside his son, looking into those determined eyes. "Noah, I know you want to help, but your mother's right. It's just too risky." Noah shook his head. Dad, please. I promised him last night that I would save him. I have to keep my promise. Dr. Sanchez cleared her throat. If I may, sometimes animals do form unusual bonds, especially in crisis situations. And if this dog is already traumatized, having someone he trusts could make a significant difference. Jack and Emma exchanged worried glances. The thought of their 5-year-old crawling beneath a massive fallen tree terrified them. But there was something in Noah's certainty, in the unwavering connection he seemed to share with the trapped animal, that gave them pause. What if, Jack began, thinking out loud, what if we secure a rope around Noah's waist? That way, if anything happens, we can pull him out immediately. Noah nodded eagerly. That would work. Max says that's a good idea. Dr. Sanchez demonstrated how to secure a makeshift harness around Noah's small frame, using climbing rope that one of the neighbors had brought. She then showed him how to approach the injured dog. Move very slowly and speak softly. Even if he seems to trust you, he's in pain and might react unpredictably, she cautioned. Noah listened attentively, though something in his expression suggested he already knew these things. As final preparations were made, the crowd of neighbors grew silent. Emma clutched Jack's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. This was their baby, their only child, about to crawl beneath a fallen tree that could shift at any moment. Noah looked back at his parents, offering a reassuring smile that seemed far too mature for his 5 years. It's okay, he said simply. This is why I'm here. With those cryptic words, Noah lay on his stomach and began to inch his way into the tunnel they had dug, the safety rope trailing behind him. The crowd held their collective breath as Noah's small form disappeared into the darkness beneath the massive oak. Jack gripped the safety rope tightly, ready to pull his son back at the first sign of danger. Emma pressed her hands to her mouth, silently praying for her child's safety. Inside the tunnel, Noah crawled through the damp earth, guided by an instinct he couldn't explain. The space was tight, with jagged roots and splintered wood scraping against his skin, but he felt no fear. Instead, a strange calmness washed over him, the same feeling he'd had during the storm when he first heard Max calling out to him. I'm coming, Noah whispered as he inched forward, just a little bit more. When he finally reached the trapped dog, the sight broke his heart. Max lay on his side, his powerful body pinned by the massive trunk. His amber eyes, filled with pain, but also unmistakable recognition, locked onto Noah's. I told you I'd help you, Noah whispered, reaching out to touch the dog's muzzle, just like you showed me. To the amazement of Dr. Sanchez, who was monitoring as best she could from outside, Max didn't growl or snap despite his injuries. Instead, the German Shepherd licked Noah's hand weakly, as if acknowledging their strange bond. I can see him clearly now, Noah called back. His back leg is trapped, and there's something pressing against his side. Dr. Sanchez relayed instructions, which Noah followed with a precision that belied his young age. He carefully checked Max's breathing and gently felt along the dog's body, describing each injury with uncanny accuracy. There's a big cut on his shoulder, Noah reported, and his back leg is twisted funny. He says it hurts the most. Outside, the adults exchanged puzzled glances at Noah's continued references to the dog telling him things. But no one questioned it, not when the boys' directions had gotten them this far. Dr. Sanchez passed a specialized animal harness into the tunnel, guiding Noah on how to secure it around Max's torso. Be very gentle, she cautioned. We don't want to worsen any internal injuries. He understands what we're doing, Noah replied confidently. He's trying to stay still to help. It took nearly 20 minutes of careful work, but finally, Noah announced that the harness was secure. He's ready, the boy called out, but you have to pull very slowly. He's really scared about his leg moving. Dr. Sanchez coordinated the extraction effort. On my count, we'll pull with even, gentle pressure. Noah, you stay with his head and keep him calm. The tension was palpable as rescuers took positions on the rescue ropes. Emma clutched Jack's arm so tightly she left marks, unable to tear her eyes away from the tunnel entrance, where their son remained out of sight. 1, 2, 3, gentle pull, Dr. Sanchez directed. The ropes tightened, and a pained whimper came from beneath the tree. Noah's voice immediately followed, soothing and calm beyond his years. It's okay, Max. I know it hurts. Just a little more. Inch by excruciating inch, the injured German Shepherd was pulled from his wooden prison. Every few seconds, they paused to let Noah check on the dog's condition. Each time, the boy provided specific instructions that left Dr. Sanchez increasingly amazed. "Stop pulling on the right side rope," Noah would say. "It's pressing against his injured rib." Or, "Pull a little more on the left now. There's a branch scratching his wound." After what seemed like an eternity, Max's body emerged fully from beneath the tree. The crowd of neighbors let out a collective gasp at the sight of the injured animal, his fur matted with blood and dirt, one leg clearly broken, his powerful body somehow diminished by the ordeal. But it was the sight of young Noah that truly moved them. The 5-year-old crawled out behind the dog, his clothes torn and filthy, his face streaked with mud and tears. Yet, his expression held a serene determination as he immediately positioned himself by Max's head, whispering into the animal's ear and stroking his neck with gentle hands. Dr. Sanchez sprang into action, cutting away the harness and beginning emergency treatment. She injected pain medication and began assessing the extensive injuries while calling for assistance from her clinic. Multiple lacerations, compound fracture of the right rear femur, possible internal bleeding, she muttered as she worked. He's also severely dehydrated and showing signs of shock. Throughout the examination, Noah remained by Max's head, his small hand never leaving the dog's fur. The most remarkable thing, noted by everyone present, was how calm the injured animal remained during the painful examination. German Shepherds were known for their high pain tolerance, but a severely injured dog would typically be aggressive or at least resistant to handling. Yet Max lay still, his eyes never leaving Noah's face. "He should be in shock, or at least defensive," Dr. Sanchez whispered to Jack. "I've never seen anything like this behavior in a traumatized animal." "He's not scared anymore because I promised him," Noah explained simply, overhearing her comment. "I told him we would help fix his leg and find his family." As Dr. Sanchez prepared Max for transport to her clinic, a commotion at the edge of the gathered crowd drew everyone's attention. A woman in her early 30s pushed her way through, her face pale with shock. "Max!" she cried out, rushing toward the injured dog. Tom Wilson stepped forward to intercept her. "Hannah? I thought your brother and his family were in Florida?" The woman, Hannah Johnson, nodded tearfully. "They are. I'm watching their house while they're gone. My niece Olivia was supposed to be checking on Max twice a day, but—" Her voice broke. "There was a miscommunication. She thought I was doing the evening visits, and I thought she was. When I realized what happened this morning and found the gate open—" She covered her mouth, overcome with emotion at the sight of the injured animal. Dr. Sanchez briefed Hannah on Max's condition, while her assistants prepared the specialized stretcher for transport. "He's critical but stable. The fact that he was found when he was makes all the difference. Another few hours." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Hannah knelt beside Max, tears flowing freely. "I'm so sorry, boy. I promised David I'd take care of you." At the mention of this name, Max's ears twitched despite his weakened state. Noah, who hadn't left the dog's side, looked up at Hannah with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. "Who's David?" he asked quietly. Hannah seemed startled by the question coming from this mud-covered child. "David is my brother," she explained gently. "Max was his dog. He was a firefighter." Noah nodded as if this confirmed something he already knew. "Max says David saved a little girl from a burning building. He went back inside even though it was dangerous." The blood drained from Hannah's face. She stared at Noah, then at the adults around him, searching their expressions for some explanation of how this child could know this information. "How did you—" she began, her voice barely a whisper. Emma stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her son's shoulder. "Noah has always had a special way with animals," she said carefully. "We don't quite understand it ourselves." Noah continued, seemingly unaware of the shock his words had caused. "Max says David is okay now. He's in the bright place. He's not hurting anymore." Hannah sank to her knees in the mud, her body shaking with silent sobs. Jack moved to help her, concerned she might be in shock, but she waved him away. "My brother died 8 months ago," she explained through her tears. "He was a firefighter with the county department. He did die saving a child from a house fire, a little girl about your son's age. He went back in when no one else would." She looked at Noah with a mixture of fear and wonder. "How could you possibly know that?" Noah shrugged. the gesture oddly adult on his small frame. Max told me. He remembers everything about David. As if sensing he was being discussed, Max let out a soft whine. Noah immediately returned his attention to the dog, whispering comforting words that no one else could hear. Dr. Sanchez interrupted this remarkable scene with necessary urgency. We need to get him to the clinic now. His condition could deteriorate rapidly. As they carefully lifted Max onto the stretcher, Noah never broke contact, walking alongside and keeping one hand on the dog's fur. When they reached the veterinary van, however, Dr. Sanchez gently explained that Noah couldn't ride along. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but we need space to work on him during transport," she said kindly. Noah's face fell, genuine fear crossing his features for the first time that day. "But he needs me there. He'll be scared without me." Hannah, who had composed herself somewhat, knelt beside Noah. "I'm going with him," she assured the boy. "I promise I'll tell him you'll come see him as soon as you can." Noah considered this, then nodded reluctantly. He leaned close to Max one last time. "You have to be brave now," he whispered. "The doctor lady is going to help your leg, but you have to stay strong. I'll come find you soon." As the van pulled away, Emma finally gave in to the emotions she'd been holding back. She gathered Noah into her arms, crying and laughing simultaneously as she checked him for injuries. "I'm fine, Mom," Noah protested as she fussed over the scrapes on his arms and knees. "Max was hurt much worse than me." "I know, baby, but you scared us half to death," Emma replied, pulling him tight against her chest. The neighbors began dispersing, returning to their storm-damaged homes with a remarkable story to tell. Several paused to pat Noah's head or squeeze Jack's shoulder, murmuring words of amazement and encouragement. Tom Wilson was the last to leave. "That was something else," he said, shaking his head in wonder. "I've never seen anything like it. Your boy, he's special." Jack nodded, watching as Emma led an exhausted Noah back toward their house. "He's always been different," he admitted, "especially with animals. But this was—" He trailed off, unable to find words to describe what they had witnessed. "A miracle," Tom supplied, "pure and simple." That evening, after Noah had been bathed and his minor injuries treated, the Cooper family sat in their partially damaged living room. The power was still out across most of the neighborhood, so they ate a simple dinner by candlelight. Noah, despite his exhausting day, showed no interest in sleeping. "When can we go see Max?" he asked for the third time since dinner. "Dr. Sanchez said they'd call us tomorrow with an update," Jack reminded him. "Max needs surgery and lots of rest." Noah nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "He's scared at the animal hospital. There are too many strange smells and noises." Emma and Jack exchanged a look across the table. Throughout the day, they had witnessed their son's inexplicable connection to the injured dog. Now, in the quiet aftermath, they could no longer avoid addressing it. "Noah," Emma began carefully, "how did you know Max was trapped under that tree?" Noah looked up from his plate, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. "He called me during the storm." "Called you... how?" Jack prompted gently. Noah frowned, clearly struggling to explain something that seemed perfectly natural to him. "Not like talking on a phone, more like..." He tapped his temple. "In here." He was really scared and looking for help. He kept showing me pictures of where he was. "And this has happened before, with other animals?" Emma asked. Noah nodded matter-of-factly. "The birds tell me when feeders are empty. Mrs. Peterson's cat tells me when she's locked in the garage. But Max was louder than any animal I've ever heard. Maybe because he was really hurt, or maybe because..." He hesitated. "Because what, buddy?" Jack encouraged. "Because he used to be a helper dog," Noah said. "He told me he and David used to find people who were lost or trapped, like he was." Emma's hand trembled as she set down her fork. "And what about the things you knew about David? How he died saving a little girl?" Noah shrugged again. "Max remembers everything about David. He showed me pictures in my head. I saw the burning building and how David went inside, even though other firefighters were yelling at him to stay out." Jack ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what his son was describing. "And what did you mean when you told Hannah that David is in the bright place?" A strange expression crossed Noah's face, a mixture of innocence and ancient wisdom. "Max can still feel David sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Like a warm hand on his head or a familiar smell. He says David is in a place that's all bright and has no pain. Noah looked down at his plate, suddenly shy. I've seen that place too sometimes, in dreams. Emma reached across the table and took her husband's hand, squeezing it tightly. They'd always known their son was different, more empathetic, more intuitive than other children. But this was beyond anything they'd imagined. Does it scare you, hearing animals this way? Jack asked carefully. Noah considered the question. No, it's just how things are, but sometimes it's loud, especially when they're hurt or scared. He looked up at his parents with sudden vulnerability. Does it make you scared of me? Oh, baby, no, Emma said immediately, moving to wrap her arms around him. Nothing about you could ever scare us. We're just trying to understand. Your gift is amazing, Jack added, joining the embrace. We just want to help you with it. Noah relaxed in their arms, the tension leaving his small body. Max has a gift too, he murmured sleepily. That's why we found each other. He says we have more work to do together. Later that night, after Noah had finally fallen asleep, Jack and Emma sat on their partially covered porch, staring at the star-filled sky that had replaced the previous night's terror. What do we do with this? Emma whispered. How do we help him understand something we can't begin to comprehend ourselves? Jack shook his head, words failing him. Their son had always been special, but today had revealed abilities that defied explanation. I don't know, he admitted, but we've always known he was different. Maybe we just need to trust that he understands his gift better than we ever could. And what about Max? Emma asked. You saw them together. There's a connection there that's... She struggled to find the right word. Extraordinary, Jack supplied, like they were meant to find each other. Emma leaned against her husband's shoulder, finding comfort in his solid presence. Hannah said Max was a search and rescue dog. Do you think that has something to do with it? Jack considered this. Maybe. Or maybe Noah's connection to animals is especially strong with ones that are already attuned to human emotions. He paused, remembering how his son had directed the rescue with uncanny precision. Either way, I don't think their story together is finished. As if in response to his words, the phone in their kitchen rang, startling in the late-night silence. Jack hurried inside to answer it, returning moments later with a strange expression. That was Dr. Sanchez, he said, his voice hushed with disbelief. She says Max is refusing to eat or take medication. He's growing agitated, which is dangerous given his injuries. He met Emma's questioning gaze. She wants to know if we can bring Noah to the clinic first thing tomorrow. She says she's never seen anything like the bond between them, and right now, Max seems to be waiting for Noah. Emma should have been shocked, but after everything she'd witnessed that day, she could only nod in weary acceptance of this new reality. Of course we'll take him, but Jack... She hesitated. What does this mean for our son? For his future? Jack had no answer as he pulled his wife close, both of them contemplating the remarkable child sleeping inside and the extraordinary path that seemed to be unfolding before him. Would you help Noah communicate with animals if you had his special ability? What other animals do you think he might be able to help? The following morning arrived with a brilliant sunrise, nature's stark contrast to the previous day's devastation. Noah was awake and dressed before his parents, standing impatiently by the front door when they emerged from their bedroom. We need to go now, he announced, his backpack already slung over his shoulder. Max didn't sleep all night. His leg hurts too much. Emma and Jack exchanged a look of mingled concern and resignation. Their son's connection to the injured German Shepherd was beyond their understanding, but they couldn't deny its reality. Let me call Dr. Sanchez first, Emma said, reaching for her phone. The clinic might not be open this early. Noah shook his head. She's already there. She stayed all night with Max because he was too upset. Jack knelt before his son, placing gentle hands on his shoulders. Noah, buddy, how can you possibly know that? The boy's response was simple and unflinching. Max told me. 30 minutes later, they pulled into the parking lot of Riverdale Animal Hospital. To their surprise, the lights were indeed on despite the early hour. Dr. Sanchez herself opened the door before they could even knock, her face showing signs of exhaustion, but also unmistakable wonder. I'm glad you're here, she said, ushering them inside. Max had a difficult night. He refused sedation and has barely let us touch him since the surgery. Surgery? Emma asked with concern. Dr. Sanchez nodded as she led them through the clinic. We had no choice. His femur was completely fractured, and there was significant internal bleeding. The procedure went well, but his recovery... She glanced at Noah. He's been waiting for someone. They stopped outside a treatment room door. Through the small window, they could see Max lying on a padded table, his body connected to monitoring equipment, his injured leg wrapped in a substantial cast. Despite his obvious sedation, the dog's eyes were open, staring fixedly at the door. The moment Noah entered the room, the change in Max was immediate and dramatic. The German Shepherd's tail thumped weakly against the table, and a small whine escaped him. The monitors tracking his vital signs showed a sudden improvement, heart rate steadying, blood pressure normalizing. Remarkable, Dr. Sanchez breathed, watching as Noah went straight to the dog's side. I told you I'd come back, Noah whispered, placing his small hand gently on Max's head. The dog closed his eyes briefly, as if in relief. I know it hurts really bad, but Dr. Sanchez fixed your leg, and now you need to eat something so you can get strong again. To the astonishment of everyone watching, Max licked Noah's hand, and then turned his attention to the untouched bowl of food nearby. When Noah held it up for him, the dog began to eat slowly but steadily. I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Sanchez admitted, shaking her head in amazement. We've been trying to get him to eat since 3 a.m. He wouldn't even accept water from us. Hannah Johnson arrived while Max was still eating. She looked as exhausted as Dr. Sanchez, with dark circles under her reddened eyes suggesting a sleepless night. How is he? She asked anxiously, then stopped short at the sight of Noah sitting beside the eating dog, one hand resting gently on his fur. Better, Dr. Sanchez replied, with significant understatement. Your brother's dog seems to have formed an extraordinary bond with this young man. Hannah moved closer, watching the interaction with wonder. Max was always special, she said quietly. David used to say he had almost human intelligence. That's what made him such an exceptional search and rescue dog. Noah looked up at the mention of this. He found 17 people, the boy stated matter-of-factly. Some were lost hikers, some were trapped after earthquakes. 3 were children who wandered away from campsites. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth. That's exactly right. How could you possibly know that? Noah shrugged, his attention returning to Max. He's proud of each one. He remembers all their faces. The adults fell into uncomfortable silence, none of them quite knowing how to respond to these impossible revelations. It was Jack who finally spoke, his voice carefully measured. Hannah, Dr. Sanchez mentioned that Max was a search and rescue dog. Could you tell us more about that? It might help us understand whatever this connection is. Hannah settled into a chair, her eyes never leaving the remarkable tableau of the small boy and the injured dog. My brother David was a firefighter, as I mentioned yesterday, but his real passion was search and rescue work. He and Max were one of the top Canine teams in the state. They were called in for missing persons cases, disaster response, even evidence recovery for police investigations. She paused, visibly gathering herself. After David died, Max was retired from official duty. He was too traumatized by losing his handler. He still dreams about the fire, Noah interjected softly, his fingers gently scratching behind Max's ears. He tried to go in after David, but another firefighter held him back. Hannah's eyes widened. Yes, she whispered. That's exactly what happened. Chief Ramirez had to physically restrain Max from running into the collapsing building. Dr. Sanchez, who had been updating Max's medical chart, set down her tablet and approached the examination table. Noah, she began carefully, can you tell when Max is in pain? Does he somehow communicate that to you? Noah nodded. Right now his leg hurts the most. It feels hot and tight. But his side hurts too, where you put the stitches. He pointed to a spot on Max's flank that was indeed bandaged following surgery for internal bleeding. The veterinarian exchanged a significant look with Jack and Emma. That's exactly right, she confirmed. We had to repair a tear in his spleen. The location is precisely where Noah indicated. Emma moved to stand beside her son, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. What does this mean? For Noah? For Max? Scientifically speaking, I have no idea, Dr. Sanchez admitted. But clinically, I can tell you that Max's vital signs have improved dramatically since Noah arrived. His pain indicators are down, stress hormones decreased. Whatever this connection is, It's having a measurable positive effect on his recovery. Jack cleared his throat. So what happens now? With Max, I mean? All eyes turned to Hannah, who looked torn. I don't know, she admitted. He was staying with me temporarily while my brother's family decided. David's wife, Sarah, is still grieving. Taking care of Max was too painful for her. He reminds her too much of David. He can't go to a shelter, Noah said immediately, alarm clear in his voice. He's special. He still has work to do. Work? Emma questioned gently. Noah's eyes, wise beyond their years, met his mother's. Helping people, finding them when they're lost. That's why we found each other. He told me there are more people who will need us. A heavy silence fell over the room as the adults contemplated the implications of this statement. It was Hannah who finally broke it. Let me talk to Sarah, she said quietly. She needs to know about this connection, about how special Max still is. Maybe, she glanced at Noah, then at his parents. Maybe there's a reason all of this happened. Over the next days, a routine developed. Noah would attend school, then immediately ask to be taken to the veterinary clinic where Max was recovering. The staff had grown used to the unusual arrangement, making special accommodations for the boys' extended visits. No one questioned it anymore, not after seeing how the dog's health improved dramatically when Noah was present. Dr. Sanchez had begun documenting the case for a veterinary journal, meticulously recording the inexplicable ways in which Noah seemed to understand Max's condition, often before diagnostic tests confirmed his observations. He says the metal rod in his leg feels cold today, Noah might report, prompting Dr. Sanchez to check and discover that, indeed, the surgical implant was causing inflammation. Or, Max says his stomach feels better now that you changed his medicine, providing confirmation that a medication adjustment had been effective before any observable signs would indicate it. 2 weeks into Max's recovery, the weather took an ominous turn. Heavy rains returned to Riverdale, flooding low-lying areas and straining the already damaged infrastructure from the previous storm. Flash flood warnings scrolled across the bottom of TV screens, but most residents, still focused on repairing their homes, paid little attention. Noah, however, grew increasingly agitated as the rain intensified. He paced the living room, repeatedly glancing out windows toward the swollen creek that ran behind their property. "What's wrong, buddy?" Jack asked, looking up from the insurance paperwork that had consumed much of his time since the storm. "Someone's going to need help by the creek," Noah said, his voice tight with anxiety. "Max knows it too. He's trying to get up at the clinic." Emma set down her coffee, eyeing her son with concern. "Noah, honey, Max is still recovering. He can't get up yet. Dr. Sanchez said it would be at least another week before he could even try walking." "He knows someone's in trouble," Noah insisted, growing more distressed. "I can feel it too. Someone old. They're by the water." Jack exchanged a worried glance with Emma. They had grown somewhat accustomed to Noah's unusual connection with Max, but this was different. This was a claim about a person potentially in danger. "The creek is really high right now," Jack said, trying to reason with his son. "No one would be out there in this weather." But Noah's agitation only increased as the afternoon wore on. When Emma went to prepare dinner, she returned to find Noah gone, his yellow raincoat missing from its hook. "Jack!" she called out in panic. "Noah's gone outside!" They rushed out into the pouring rain, calling Noah's name. The backyard was empty, but the gate leading toward the creek trail stood open. "He's gone to the creek," Jack said grimly, already heading in that direction. "Call Tom and Mike. We need help searching." Within 30 minutes, a small group of neighbors had gathered, equipped with flashlights and rain gear. The creek, normally a gentle stream, had become a rushing torrent, swollen by the continuous downpour. "We'll split into groups," Tom Wilson organized. "Jack and I will head upstream. Mike, you and Bill go downstream. Emma, stay at the house in case Noah comes back." As the search parties dispersed, the rain intensified. Jack felt a growing knot of dread in his stomach as they slogged through mud and underbrush, calling his son's name. The creek waters rose visibly even as they searched, swirling angrily just feet from the path. "There!" Tom suddenly shouted, pointing toward a bend in the creek. In the beam of his flashlight, Jack caught a glimpse of something yellow. Noah's raincoat. His heart nearly stopped until he realized his son was moving, struggling with something at the creek's edge. They ran toward him, slipping on the muddy trail. As they drew closer, the scene became clear. Noah was on his knees in the mud, pulling desperately at the arm of an elderly man who was half submerged in the rising water, apparently unconscious. "Mr. Peterson!" Tom exclaimed, recognizing their elderly neighbor who lived in the small cottage further upstream. Together, they pulled the old man from the water's edge. He was breathing but unresponsive, a nasty gash on his forehead suggesting he had fallen. "Noah, what were you thinking?" Jack demanded, torn between relief at finding his son and anger at his reckless behavior. "You could have been swept away." "Max told me someone was in trouble," Noah replied simply, his small face solemn beneath his dripping hood. "He showed me where to find Mr. Peterson. He fell checking his garden wall and couldn't get up. The water was getting higher." As they carried Mr. Peterson back toward the houses, Jack couldn't shake a profound sense of unease. His 5-year-old son had somehow known an elderly neighbor was in life-threatening danger, had somehow found him in the exact spot where he lay injured. This went beyond a special connection with animals. This was something else entirely. When they reached home, emergency services were already there, alerted by Emma. As paramedics loaded Mr. Peterson into an ambulance, the elderly man briefly regained consciousness. "The boy," he murmured, looking around in confusion. "How did he find me? I was calling out, but the rain... No one could have heard me." Noah, wrapped in a dry blanket on the porch, answered with his usual directness. "Max heard you. He told me where to look." Later that night, after Noah had been dried, warmed, and reluctantly put to bed, Jack and Emma sat at their kitchen table, the weight of the day's events hanging heavy between them. "This can't be coincidence," Emma finally said, breaking the tense silence. "First the dog in the storm, now Mr. Peterson. Noah he's special," Jack finished for her. "But what does that mean for him, for his future?" Emma shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know. I just know I'm terrified. What if he puts himself in danger again because of this connection? What if next time we're not fast enough to find him?" Before Jack could respond, the phone rang. It was Hannah Johnson. "I've spoken with Sarah, my brother's widow," she said without preamble. "I told her everything, about Noah, about the rescue, about today's incident with your neighbor. She wants to meet him." "Meet Noah? Why?" Jack asked, putting the call on speaker so Emma could hear. There was a pause on the line. "Because David always said that Max had abilities no one could explain, that he could sense things other dogs couldn't. Sarah thinks maybe this connection with your son is happening for a reason." After disconnecting the call, Jack and Emma sat in stunned silence, the implications of Hannah's words hanging in the air between them. "What if Noah's right?" Emma finally whispered. "What if he and Max really are meant to help people together?" Jack had no answer, only a growing certainty that their family stood at the threshold of something both extraordinary and frightening. Their son possessed a gift that they couldn't begin to understand, a gift that seemed destined to reshape not only his life, but the lives of others in ways they could not predict. Upstairs, Noah slept peacefully, a small smile on his face. In his dreams, he ran through sun-dappled woods, a powerful German shepherd loping easily at his side. Ahead of them, someone waited to be found. Have you ever felt a special connection with an animal that you couldn't explain? Did they ever seem to understand something before you did? 3 days after Noah's rescue of Mr. Peterson, the Cooper family found themselves driving to a part of town they rarely visited. Hannah Johnson had arranged for them to meet Sarah Turner, David's widow, at her home on the outskirts of Riverdale. "Remember to be respectful," Emma cautioned Noah, who sat quietly in the back seat. "Mrs. Turner is still very sad about losing her husband." Noah nodded solemnly. "I know, Max is sad too, but he says she needs to hear some things." Jack and Emma exchanged a quick glance but said nothing. They had learned to accept their son's unusual statements, even when they sent shivers down their spines. Sarah Turner's house was a modest single story, with carefully tended flower beds lining the front walk. Hannah met them at the door, her expression a mixture of anxiety and hope. "Thank you for coming," she said, ushering them inside. "Sarah is, well, she's nervous about this meeting, but she wanted to meet Noah very much." They were led into a living room where family photos covered nearly every available surface. In most of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a firefighter's uniform stood smiling, often with Max at his side. and in many, a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile stood beside him. That same woman now rose from an armchair as they entered. She was thinner than in the photos, with grief etching lines around her eyes, but her smile was genuine as she extended her hand to Jack and Emma. "I'm Sarah. Thank you for bringing your son." Her gaze shifted to Noah, who stood slightly apart, his eyes moving curiously around the room. "And you must be the amazing young man I've heard so much about." Noah didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked directly to a photo on the mantelpiece, one showing David in full firefighter gear with Max sitting proudly beside him. He studied it intently, then turned to Sarah. "Max misses going to work with him," he said simply. He liked the special vest he got to wear. Sarah's breath caught audibly. She sank back into her chair, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. His search vest. David had it custom made after their certification. Noah nodded as if this confirmed something. The orange one with the special pockets for water and treats. Max says it made him feel important. The room fell silent. Jack moved to put a protective hand on Noah's shoulder, but Sarah raised her hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "Hannah told me about what Noah can do. I needed to see it for myself." She gestured for Noah to come closer. "Can you tell me more about what Max has shared with you?" Noah approached without hesitation, standing directly in front of Sarah. "He says you used to sneak him bacon at breakfast when David wasn't looking," he said, a small smile crossing his face. "And you were the one who taught him how to shake hands, not David." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she nodded. "That's all true," she whispered. "David was always so strict about his diet, but I couldn't resist those eyes." "He really loved going to work with David," Noah continued, "especially in the mountains. That's where they found the little girl who had been lost for 2 nights. Sarah covered her mouth, tears now flowing freely. "Amber Collins. She was only 4. They found her in a ravine 3 miles from the campsite. Everyone else had given up, but David and Max kept searching." She looked at Hannah, then back at Noah. "How can he know these things?" Noah shrugged, the gesture endearingly childlike, despite the extraordinary nature of the conversation. "Max remembers everything. He says David was the bravest human he ever knew." Sarah wiped her eyes, visibly struggling to maintain her composure. "Hannah told me about how you found him after the storm, how you knew he was trapped, and about yesterday with your elderly neighbor." She took a deep breath. "I've been trying to decide what to do about Max since David died. I couldn't bear to keep him. The reminder was too painful, but I couldn't stand the thought of him going to strangers either." "He understands," Noah said quietly. "He knows you're sad, and he doesn't blame you." Sarah reached out tentatively, taking Noah's small hand in hers. "Hannah thinks, and I'm starting to believe, that Max found you for a reason, that maybe this connection you share is meant for something important." Noah nodded, completely unsurprised. "We have work to do together, people to find, like he did with David." Jack stepped forward, finally entering the conversation. "Mrs. Turner, Sarah, I understand this is all very emotional, but Noah is only 5 years old. Whatever this connection is, whatever abilities he seems to have, we're still trying to make sense of it ourselves." "I understand completely," Sarah assured him. "I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate, but I've seen what trained search and rescue dogs can do, the lives they can save. And if Max has somehow found a new partner, then who am I to stand in the way of that?" Emma joined her husband. "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah straightened, seeming to find strength in having a concrete discussion. "Max will be fully recovered in another month or so, according to Dr. Sanchez. I'd like to officially transfer his ownership to your family, with the understanding that his training wouldn't be wasted, that under appropriate adult supervision, he and Noah might continue the work he was born to do." Jack and Emma were momentarily speechless, the magnitude of the proposal washing over them. It was Hannah who broke the silence. "Max was one of the best search and rescue dogs in the state," she explained. "His training represents thousands of hours and considerable expense. But more than that, it's David's legacy. Sarah is offering you something precious beyond measure." "I don't know what to say," Emma finally managed. "This is overwhelming." Noah, however, had no such reservations. "Max would be so happy," he said, his expression brightening. He misses having a job. He misses helping people. Sarah smiled through her tears. That's exactly what David always said about him, that Max wasn't happy unless he was working. Jack ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he often made when overwhelmed. We would need to learn. We don't know anything about search and rescue work or how to handle a dog like Max. That's where I could help, Sarah offered. I went with David to many of his training sessions. I know the commands, the protocols, and there's a search and rescue group in the county that would, I'm sure, be amazed by what Noah and Max can do together. She paused, her expression growing more serious. But I need to be clear about something. Search and rescue work is demanding and sometimes dangerous. I would never want to put your son at risk. Max would protect Noah, Hannah interjected. That much was clear from the moment they met. Noah, who had been quietly listening to the adults, suddenly spoke with startling conviction. He says we're supposed to be a team. He's been waiting for me, even before the storm. A heavy silence fell over the room as the adults contemplated this declaration. It was Jack who finally responded, kneeling to meet his son at eye level. Noah, is this really what you want? To have Max come live with us? To learn how to do search and rescue work with him? Noah's answer was immediate and certain. Yes, Dad. It's why I could hear him in the storm when no one else could. Jack looked up at Emma, a silent question in his eyes. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Then I think, Jack said, standing to face Sarah, we have a lot to talk about. The next 4 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Max continued his recovery at the veterinary clinic, making progress that Dr. Sanchez described as nothing short of miraculous. Noah visited daily, often reporting improvements in Max's condition before the medical tests confirmed them. Sarah became a regular presence in their lives, bringing photo albums and stories about David and Max's work together. She taught Jack and Emma the basic commands Max knew, the protocols of search and rescue operations, and the special care a working dog required. He's not just a pet, she explained one afternoon as they watched Noah and Max interact during a supervised visit in the clinic's recovery garden. He's a highly trained professional with instincts and abilities that most people can't begin to understand. Emma nodded, watching in amazement as Noah led Max through a series of commands that Sarah had just taught him. Despite his still-healing leg, the German Shepherd performed flawlessly, his eyes never leaving Noah's face. It's like they've been working together for years, Sarah marveled. David would spend weeks training Max on new commands. Noah shows him once, and it's like they have a shared understanding. Dr. Sanchez joined them, clipboard in hand. His latest x-rays are extraordinary, she reported. The bone healing is at least twice the rate we'd normally expect, and the soft tissue damage is almost completely resolved. She shook her head in wonder. I've been documenting everything for a medical journal. This case defies conventional veterinary understanding. It's their connection, Sarah said simply. It's healing him. The day finally came when Max was cleared to leave the clinic. A small ceremony had been arranged in the recovery garden, with Hannah, Sarah, Dr. Sanchez, and several clinic staff in attendance. Sarah had brought a special item, Max's official search and rescue vest, freshly cleaned and repaired. David would want him to have this, she said, tears shimmering in her eyes as she handed the bright orange vest to Noah. It's part of who he is. Noah accepted it reverently, his small fingers tracing the embroidered patches that documented Max's certifications and accomplishments. Thank you, he said, his voice uncharacteristically shy. I promise we'll make David proud. Sarah knelt before him, placing her hands on his shoulders. I know you will. David always said that Max had a special purpose in this world. I think now we know what it is. The vest was still too large for Max's somewhat diminished frame. He had lost muscle mass during his recovery, but when Noah carefully fastened it around him, the change in the dog's demeanor was immediate and profound. He stood taller, his posture shifting from that of a convalescent patient to a working professional. Look at that, Hannah whispered. He remembers exactly what it means. As Noah led Max to the Cooper family's car, the dog walked with noticeable pride, despite the slight limp that would, according to Dr. Sanchez, fade with time and physical therapy. He settled into the specially prepared space in the back seat, his eyes meeting Noah's with unmistakable contentment. He says he's coming home, Noah reported, buckling himself in beside the dog. Home had been prepared for Max's arrival. Jack had built a custom ramp for the porch steps to accommodate Max's healing leg. A orthopedic dog bed had been installed in Noah's room. Though everyone suspected it would rarely be used, Noah had already made it clear that Max would be sleeping on his bed. Special food, medications, and rehabilitation exercises had all been carefully explained by Dr. Sanchez, with additional instructions from Sarah about maintaining Max's training during his final recovery period. No active search training for at least another 2 weeks, she cautioned as they unloaded at the Cooper home, but you can begin refreshing his scent discrimination and basic commands. Max explored his new home with methodical thoroughness, Noah at his side explaining each room and its purpose. Despite his lingering injury, the dog moved with growing confidence, his natural alertness returning more with each passing day. That evening, after Max had been fed, medicated, and settled in Noah's room, Jack and Emma sat on their porch, contemplating the extraordinary turn their lives had taken. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Emma asked softly, encouraging this, whatever it is between them. Jack considered the question carefully. "I don't think we have a choice," he finally replied. "Whatever this connection is, it's real. We've both seen it, and it's helping both of them." He paused, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Max needed Noah to heal, and Noah, maybe he needed Max to discover something about himself. "But search and rescue work? He's so young, Jack." Sarah said they'd start with just training, simulated scenarios, nothing dangerous, and we'll be there every step of the way. He took his wife's hand. "Besides, you've seen them together. It's like they were meant to find each other." Emma leaned against her husband's shoulder. "It's still hard to believe. Our son can somehow communicate with animals, or at least with Max. Dr. Sanchez wants to do some controlled tests to see if it extends to other animals. She has been talking to researchers at the university." Emma tensed. "I don't want Noah treated like some kind of science experiment." "Neither do I. But eventually, we're going to need help understanding what this means, how to help him manage it as he grows up." They sat in contemplative silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of their neighborhood still recovering from the storm's devastation. From inside the house came the soft murmur of Noah's voice as he talked to Max. A one-sided conversation to anyone else's ears, but clearly a meaningful exchange to the boy and his dog. "Sarah seemed different today," Emma observed. "More at peace." Jack nodded. "I think giving Max to Noah has helped her, like she's honoring David's memory by making sure Max can continue the work they did together." "It's still a huge responsibility, for all of us." Jack squeezed her hand. "One day at a time, Em, that's all we can do." Inside, Noah lay on his bed with Max curled beside him, the dog's head resting on his chest. The pain in Max's leg had subsided to a dull ache, manageable now with Noah's presence providing comfort beyond any medication. "Tomorrow, I'll show you the whole neighborhood," Noah whispered, his fingers gently stroking the dog's fur. "And then we can start practicing commands, like Sarah showed us." Max's tail thumped softly against the bed. "I know you miss David," the boy continued, responding to something only he could perceive. "But you still have important work to do. We both do." Max raised his head, his intelligent eyes fixed on Noah's face, with an intensity that would have seemed uncanny to anyone watching. Noah smiled, receiving a message no one else could hear. "Yes," he agreed. "We'll be ready when they need us, I promise." As Noah drifted off to sleep, his hand resting protectively on Max's neck, the German Shepherd remained awake, his senses alert to every sound in this new home, his body positioned to shield the small boy beside him. In his canine mind, memories of his former handler mingled with growing devotion to this child, who somehow understood him in ways no human ever had. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, washing away more of the storm's lingering debris, cleansing the town as it continued to rebuild. In homes throughout Riverdale, the story of the boy who had found the trapped dog, and later, the elderly man by the creek, had spread, growing with each telling. Some dismissed it as coincidence or exaggeration. Others wondered if there was something more, something extraordinary happening in their ordinary town. For Max and Noah, curled together in peaceful sleep, such speculation meant nothing. They had found each other across impossible odds. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. If you could communicate with just one animal, which would you choose and what would you want to ask them? 3 months passed, bringing autumn's golden touch to Riverdale. The town had largely recovered from the summer storm, with only a few visible scars remaining on the landscape. Max's physical recovery had progressed similarly, his limp now barely noticeable, his strength and endurance returning through careful rehabilitation and the daily training sessions Noah insisted upon. The Cooper family had adjusted to their new four-legged member with surprising ease. Max fit into their lives as if he had always been there, his intelligence and training making him an exceptional companion. But it was his relationship with Noah that continued to amaze everyone who witnessed it. They moved together with an uncanny synchronization. The dog anticipating the boy's movements, the boy responding to signals no one else could perceive. Their training sessions, initially supervised by Sarah, had quickly progressed beyond basic commands to complex search and rescue scenarios. "It's extraordinary," Sarah commented to Jack and Emma after watching Noah direct Max through an advanced scent discrimination exercise. "It took David months to reach this level with Max. Noah's accomplished it in weeks." "It's like they share a language," Emma said, watching her son praise the German Shepherd for successfully identifying the hidden training scent. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "David used to say that the best handlers don't train their dogs. They learn to communicate with them. I think Noah was born already fluent." The county search and rescue team had been cautiously receptive when Sarah introduced them to this unusual partnership. While skeptical of involving a child so young, they couldn't deny the remarkable results Noah and Max achieved in controlled training exercises. "We'll keep it to demonstrations and training for now," the team leader had decided. "No active deployments until the boy is older." Noah had accepted this limitation without complaint, seemingly content to perfect their skills through daily practice. But privately, he confided to Max that they would be needed sooner than the adults realized. On a crisp October morning, Noah sat at the kitchen table, unusually quiet as he picked at his breakfast. Max lay at his feet, equally subdued. "Everything okay, buddy?" Jack asked, noticing his son's distraction. Noah set down his spoon, his expression serious. "There's going to be another storm," he said. "Not like the big one, but bad. Max feels it coming." Emma glanced out the window at the clear blue sky. "The weather report didn't mention any storms this week." "It's still far away," Noah explained with that unsettling certainty. "But it's coming. We need to be ready." Jack and Emma exchanged the look they had perfected over recent months, equal parts concern and resigned acceptance of their son's inexplicable perceptions. "Ready how?" Jack asked carefully. "Max's vest needs new reflective tape," Noah replied, completely serious. "And we should check the batteries in the big flashlights. The power will go out again." That evening, Jack quietly replaced the batteries in their emergency flashlights and added reflective tape to Max's search vest without mentioning it to Emma. He had learned to trust Noah's unusual intuitions, even when they seemed improbable. 2 days later, the local news interrupted regular programming with a special weather bulletin. An unexpected low-pressure system had formed offshore and was intensifying rapidly. Forecast models predicted heavy rains and strong winds to hit Riverdale and surrounding counties within 48 hours. "Noah was right," Emma whispered, as they watched the meteorologist point to swirling patterns on the weather map. "He usually is," Jack replied, equally quiet. As the storm approached, Noah's behavior grew increasingly focused. He checked and rechecked Max's equipment, packed a small backpack with supplies, and studied maps of the area with an intensity that seemed out of place in a 5-year-old. "Someone will need us," he explained when Emma questioned his preparations. "Max says we need to be ready when they call." The storm arrived with less violence than its summer predecessor, but still brought significant rainfall and winds strong enough to knock out power to parts of Riverdale. The Cooper family weathered it comfortably, their previous experience having prepared them well. Noah remained vigilant throughout, Max constantly at his side, both of them seemingly waiting for something. It came in the form of a phone call just as the storm was beginning to abate. Sarah Turner's voice was tight with urgency. "Jack, the search and rescue team has been activated. A family of hikers is missing in the foothills. They were supposed to return yesterday before the storm hit, but never made it back to their car. The father managed to get a brief emergency call-out, but the signal was lost. They have a 7-year-old daughter with them." Jack glanced at Noah, who was already putting on his rain jacket, Max alertly at his side. Sarah, we agreed that Noah wouldn't be involved in actual searches yet. I know, she said, her voice apologetic but firm, but the team leader specifically asked if Max could join the search. They need every qualified dog they can get. The search area is extensive and conditions are deteriorating. And Noah? There was a pause. He said the decision is yours as Noah's parents, but after what happened with Mr. Peterson, she left the implication hanging. Jack covered the phone and turned to his wife. They want Max for a search. A family is missing with a young child. Emma's face showed her internal struggle. And Noah? That would be our decision, he replied, though they both knew there was really no decision to make. Max wouldn't work with anyone but Noah. They had established that fact during training sessions. As if reading their thoughts, Noah spoke up. We need to help them, Mom. The little girl is really cold and scared. Emma closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. Tell Sarah we'll bring Max, but Noah stays with one of us at all times. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the search and rescue staging area, established at a trailhead in the foothills outside town. Several emergency vehicles were already present, their lights cutting through the gloom of the rainy afternoon. Team members in bright yellow jackets moved purposefully around the site, preparing equipment and consulting maps. The team leader, a weathered man in his 50s named Chief Gaines, approached as they unloaded Max from the car. Mrs. Turner explained your unique situation, he said, eyeing Noah with poorly concealed skepticism. I understand the dog won't work with anyone else. That's right, Jack confirmed, a protective hand on Noah's shoulder. Chief Gaines knelt to address Noah directly. Your mom and dad say you're very good at helping Max find things. Is that true? Noah nodded solemnly. We can find the lost family, he said with quiet confidence. Max already knows they're somewhere on the North Ridge Trail. The chief's eyebrows rose sharply. We haven't disclosed the search area yet. How could you know that? Noah simply shrugged in that disconcertingly adult way of his. Max just knows? Chief Gaines straightened, conflicting emotions playing across his face. Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, I need to be clear. This is a serious search and rescue operation in dangerous conditions. I cannot and will not put a 5-year-old child at risk. We understand completely, Emma assured him. We'll stay with Noah at all times. He'll remain with the command team, well away from any dangerous areas. But Max, she hesitated, still uncomfortable with the extraordinary nature of what she was about to say. Max seems to need Noah's guidance. Chief Gaines looked skeptical, but nodded brusquely. We'll try it. But at the first sign of trouble, I want all 3 of you back at base camp. He gestured to a senior handler standing nearby. Carlos will brief you on the search parameters. Carlos, a soft-spoken man with decades of search experience evident in his weathered face, explained the situation while Sarah helped Noah prepare Max. The Williams family, father, mother, and 7-year-old daughter, set out yesterday morning for a day hike on the North Ridge Trail. When they didn't return by nightfall, the mother's sister called emergency services. The father managed one brief call around 2 a.m., reporting they had become disoriented in the dark and that his wife had injured her ankle. The call cut out before he could provide their exact location. The North Ridge has several dangerous sections, Sarah added, adjusting Max's vest, especially after heavy rain. There are steep drop-offs and the trail can become unstable. Noah listened intently while checking Max's equipment himself, his small fingers expertly testing buckles and straps. Max says they left the main trail, he said suddenly. They went toward the water. Carlos and Sarah exchanged a look. There's a creek that runs parallel to parts of the North Ridge, Carlos confirmed, but it's not visible from the main trail in most sections. They were thirsty, Noah continued, his eyes slightly unfocused, as if listening to something only he could hear. And the little girl wanted to see the waterfall. Carlos straightened abruptly. There is a waterfall about 2 miles in, but it's off-trail. Local hikers know about it, but it's not on the official maps. He studied Noah with new interest. How did you know about the waterfall? Noah pointed to Max, who sat alertly beside him, seemingly ready for deployment. He can smell the water on them, and he can tell they're near rocks, not trees. The search coordinator, who had been listening to this exchange, made a quick decision. We'll redirect teams to check the creek area near the waterfall, and... He hesitated, glancing at Noah. We'd like Max to work that section as well. With Sarah's guidance, they developed a plan. Noah would remain at the command post with Emma, using his unique connection with Max to provide direction. Jack would accompany Sarah and Max into the field, relaying Noah's insights via radio. As Max was being fitted with his tracking equipment, Noah knelt beside him, whispering in the dog's ear. The German Shepherd's posture changed subtly, becoming more alert, more focused. "He's ready," Noah announced, giving Max a final pat. "He knows exactly what to do." Jack watched his son's interaction with the dog, a mixture of pride and bewilderment washing over him. How had their ordinary family life transformed into this extraordinary reality, where his 5-year-old son possessed abilities that defied explanation? As Sarah led Max toward the trailhead, the dog looked back once at Noah, their gazes locking in silent communication. Then he turned forward, assuming the focused demeanor of a working canine. The search began with teams spreading out along assigned sectors. Regular radio checks kept Noah and Emma informed of progress, but for 2 hours there was no sign of the missing family. The rain had intensified again, complicating the search and raising concerns about hypothermia, especially for the young girl. At the command post, Noah sat quietly beside Emma, his eyes closed in concentration. Occasionally he would make a comment that the radio operator would relay to the field teams. "Max says they're higher up than where they're looking. Tell them to check near the big fallen tree by the creek bend." Each time, search coordinators would exchange doubtful glances but relay the information, and each time, field teams would report terrain features exactly matching Noah's descriptions. 3 hours into the search, with daylight fading and conditions worsening, Noah suddenly sat up straight, his eyes wide. "Max found them!" he exclaimed. "But there's a problem. The dad is trying to carry the little girl across the creek, but the water's too high." The radio crackled to life almost immediately with Jack's voice. "Command, this is Cooper with Canine Team. Max has alerted strongly near the waterfall. We can hear voices but can't see anyone yet. The creek is running high and fast." The command center erupted into activity. Additional teams were immediately dispatched with water rescue equipment. Noah remained unnaturally calm, his eyes closed in concentration. "The mom's ankle is really bad," he reported. "She can't walk, and the little girl is very cold. Max wants to go to them, but Sarah is holding him back because of the water." Radio communications confirmed each detail as Noah described it. The family had indeed been located on the far side of the creek, trapped by rising waters. The father had been attempting to carry his daughter across when Max alerted. "The rescue team estimates 20 minutes to reach their location," the coordinator announced. "We are advising the family to stay put until help arrives." Noah shook his head. "They don't have 20 minutes. The bank where they're standing is getting weaker. Max can feel it." As if to confirm his warning, the radio crackled with Sarah's urgent voice. "The ground under the family is starting to give way. The creek bank is collapsing." Emma clutched Noah's hand as they listened to the crisis unfolding. Then Noah spoke with chilling certainty. "Max knows what to do." Over the radio, they heard Jack's startled exclamation. "Max has broken from Sarah's control. He's crossing the creek." For several agonizing minutes, radio communications painted a fragmented picture of the unfolding rescue. Max had somehow traversed the swollen creek and reached the stranded family. Using techniques from his search and rescue training, he was helping to stabilize the mother while the father secured his daughter. "It's like he's directing them," Sarah's amazed voice reported. "He's showing them a safer route along the bank, away from the unstable section." By the time additional rescue personnel arrived, Max had guided the family to a more secure position upstream, where a fallen tree created a natural bridge across the narrower section of creek. With the dog leading the way, rescuers were able to bring the family safely across. Back at the command post, Noah finally relaxed, a tired smile spreading across his face. "He did it," he whispered to Emma. "He remembered all his training with David." When the rescue teams returned to base with the rescued family, the 7-year-old girl insisted on thanking the HeroDog personally. As Max received gentle pats from the child he had helped save, Noah watched from a distance, allowing the German Shepherd his moment of well-deserved recognition. Chief Gaines approached the Cooper family, his earlier skepticism replaced with undisguised amazement. "In 20 years of search and rescue work, I've never seen anything like what happened today," he admitted. That dog performed maneuvers that usually require direct handler commands, and somehow, he glanced at Noah. Somehow, he knew exactly where to look from the beginning. Sarah joined them, pride evident in her expression. "David would be so proud," she said softly, watching Max interact gently with the rescued child. "This is exactly why he trained Max, to save lives." As the excitement of the successful rescue gradually subsided, the Williams family was transported to the hospital for treatment of exposure and the mother's injured ankle. The search and rescue team began the process of debriefing and equipment recovery, and Noah, finally showing the fatigue appropriate for a 5-year-old after such an intense day, leaned against his father's leg. "Can we take Max home now?" he asked through a yawn. "He's really tired, too." In the car on the way home, with Max sleeping soundly in the back seat beside an equally exhausted Noah, Jack and Emma tried to process all that had transpired. "What happened today goes beyond coincidence or good training," Emma said quietly. "The details Noah knew, the way Max responded, it's like they share a single mind." Jack nodded, his eyes on the road glistening with rain. "Chief Gaines wants them to become officially affiliated with the search and rescue team, with strict protocols for Noah's involvement, of course. He's 5 years old, Jack." "I know, and normally I'd say absolutely not. But after today..." He glanced in the rearview mirror at his sleeping son, one arm draped protectively over the dog beside him. "I'm not sure we have the right to hold them back. Whatever this connection is, it saved lives today." Emma was silent for a long moment. "David's legacy," she finally said. "That's what Sarah called it. But it's becoming something more now, isn't it? It's becoming Noah's purpose, too." When they arrived home, Jack carried Noah to his bed, while Emma led a weary Max inside. The German Shepherd settled on his bed beside Noah's, but as soon as the adults left the room, he quietly jumped up to lie beside the sleeping boy. His body curved protectively around the small form. In the kitchen, Jack found Sarah's card with a hastily scribbled note on the back. "David always said Max was meant for something special. Now I know he was right. Thank you for letting them fulfill their purpose." Outside, the storm finally cleared, stars emerging in the night sky. Inside, Noah and Max slept peacefully, their extraordinary bond transcending explanation or understanding. Whatever challenges awaited them in the future, they would face them together. The boy who could hear what no one else could hear, and the dog who had found his new purpose. "We hear the ones no one else can hear," Noah had once whispered to Max. Tonight, as if in his dreams, the dog seemed to answer, "And together, we will find them all." If you were lost in the wilderness, would you rather have Noah and Max looking for you, or a whole team of regular rescuers? Tell us why in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see more amazing stories that will touch your heart.